I'm truly honored to be here today with all of you. I want to give a special thanks to Diana for spending a bit of time with me in the past couple months so that I could better understand our current benchmarks and the work we've done. And I'm really excited to talk about here today with my colleagues Sean Baptiste and Lourdes Valdes about our current status of local hires and the insights there, as well as some workforce development trends and activities that have occurred in 2022. And then at the tail end of the presentation, just circle back in summary on some of the 2023 insights and directions of where we're going, because I think we've got some exciting opportunities to bring this even further than where we are today. So if we can go to the first slide, Diana. Or the second slide, this is the cover slide. There we go. So, I want to talk about today hiring our neighbors. That is, our terminology for local hires is when we think about our community and our neighborhood, we are building that within our organization. And as Mark said in his opening comments, it helps us overcome two significant challenges that persist throughout our communities. And one is poverty. And by hiring our neighbors, if you will, we're not only building the strength of the economies within which we serve and provide healthcare and education on staying healthy, but we also help with the unemployment rate and bringing our community into our organization. Secondly, and this is going to show in our numbers, even if it's only incremental, I think this is something that we need to continue to test in a very big way, which is that when we think about the war on talent, because it is very challenging right now, it is not going to be won on compensation alone. In fact, I will challenge us to say that it is won on retention. And that truly is achieved by building a sense of community and a sense of belonging. And when we think of community and belonging, we start in our own neighborhoods in hiring local, as well as on the workforce development side, growing our own talent. So we'll talk about that more in our insights, but I'd like to turn to the next slide and turn this over to Sean Baptiste. Sean is serving as our interim vice president of talent acquisition and innovation. And he's going to share with you some data around our 2022 neighborhood hires that I think will tell a story that we'll be happy to share and that we can build upon in 2023. So Sean, I'm going to turn it to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mary, for that wonderful opening, and good afternoon, everyone. As Mary had mentioned, I'm Sean Baptiste, the interim VP of Talent Acquisition and Innovation, and really appreciate your time today. And I'd like to start by just a quick round of applause for all of the great work and effort that all of us have come together throughout the past year and years prior to really advancing our SICI initiatives and our core values. Mark had mentioned about the greatest asset being our workforce, but more importantly, and I wrote it down here, we're not only having an impact to the 817 people that we've hired through November 30th, we're impacting their families, their lives, their communities, the neighborhood, as Mary had mentioned. So nothing better than moving into the holiday season than reflecting on the great work that we've embarked on this past year. So as I had mentioned, this data that you see on the screen here, I'm not going to go line by line, but it's through November 30th, right? And organizationally, we've increased our local hires by 31.2% over 2021, with 817 hires through November 30th and projected hires of 900 across the system. This is critically important work because, as Mary had mentioned, and we'll talk about in the next couple of slides around retention and turnover, but we're hiring our local community, we're hiring our neighborhood. People have a sense of belonging. Most importantly, people want to be here. They want to join our organization within our local community. So it's very exciting work. Next slide, Diana, please. Diana, sorry. So this slide here is our local hires by job family. So on the far left of the graph here, you'll see our job families. All of our jobs that we post and recruit into are broken down into a segment into one of these job families here. So important notes from this slide here is our local hire workforce in 2022 is made up of 16.1% of our workforce, right? And that number includes per diems. Right. And you can see the growth from 2021 and from 2020, where it was 15% in 2020. And in 2021, it was 15.4%. So we're continuing with the efforts, the intentional efforts of hiring locally to increase this number. And you'll see in the next slide around retention and turnover. The local hires and our neighborhood hires, they want to stay with the organization, as I had mentioned before. So again, and that's last bullet here around increased hire activity, as well as increased retention rate for our local hires. And this ascending pattern is something that we're going to look to replicate across the system because this is the trend that we want to see. Next slide, Diana, please. So this slide here is very exciting, right? You've heard me say it now. I think this is my third or fourth time. Our neighborhood hires seem to want to stay with us longer. So you'll see a significant increase in our local hires and our retention rate through 2022, 78.2%. Right, that's a positive trend of our local hires year over year, which means we need to continue as we have these staffing crisis and this war on talent, as they call it. Invest in what's working, right? How do we continue to build our communities and equip them with the skills, resources, and tools to be successful? Right, we understand that our overall hire activities increased year over year. But our neighborhood retention rate again is on an upward trend, and our overall retention rate, which is something that we need to continue to look into under Mary's leadership, we will do so. But our overall retention rate is trending slightly downward year over year since 2020, right? So again, what does that tell us? While we need to focus on, pay attention to and focus on our overall retention rate, there's something about the belonging. There's something about the sense of community. There's something about our neighborhood that want to work here and make a difference in the neighborhood in which we live and serve. Right. So when Mary will touch on this slightly in a couple of slides, but when we look at our 2023 goals, when we look at talent acquisition and innovation, there will be an increased focus and targeted focus and recruitment efforts on the areas that will favorably impact overall retention. Again, while we continue to build that community, strengthen economies, and most importantly, our overall brand and what it means to be an employee here at RWJBarnabas Health. Next slide, Diana, please. So the 2022 local hires turnover rate, right? And I alluded to this. Our neighborhood hires experienced a significant decrease in turnover from 2021 to 2022. That's a significant decrease in terms of percentage year over year. And our local hires in the workforce show even a lower rate when compared to overall diverse employees. So our diverse local hires, right, are showing an even lower turnover rate as compared to all the diverse employees, right? And in 2022, our diverse hires are showing a rate of 15.5% compared to 21%, roughly 21% of all diverse employees, right? And our local hire retention rate is at 78.3%. In 2022 compared to the 76, right? So we're retaining, we're losing less, and that comes from that sense of belonging, right? It comes from people truly being invested in their communities and wanting to work with this organization and grow with this organization. And we'll continue to reiterate and share, we're not offering jobs. Right, that's not what we do here at RWJBarnabas Health. We're offering careers. We're offering the next chapter in people's books where they can continue to advance and invest in themselves and their families to aspire to be whatever they want to be. We offer it here, and we should be supporting our local communities and our hires and such. So now in the next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Lourdes to go through some of the workforce development highlights and insights that we've embarked on in 2022.
First of all, thank you, Sean, and thank you, Mary, for sharing this wonderful information and sharing the great work that we all have been doing. First of all, I want to also thank Diana Candilejo for being part of, a lot of this work that we are doing and supporting in social impact and supporting a lot of this workforce efforts also. It takes a team. It takes a village, as we said before, and I say it takes a team. Next slide, please, Diana. So I'm very excited to share some of our results for 2022 and highlight that. Sean had mentioned what we do, and what we do is, I believe the word I want to use, we actually give hope. So I think that's part of what creates retention. Someone that they know that they have, if they want to, if they have the desire, they have the opportunity, they have the hope to go forward. And I think that's something that we are branding. And I know that Marian is going to speak about this in the next few slides. But I am happy to announce that we currently in 2022 we have 265 employees who have benefited and or are currently enrolled in our programs. One of those that I would like to share is that we have trained 28 certified medical assistants for the medical group and 18 for patient services. So we really are trying to impact where we see that we have our biggest challenges in reference to retention and turnover. So that is what workforce development does. We do a very targeted, focused efforts to provide our leaders and to provide the system with talent as we go forward. But one of the things that I'm most also excited about is that we have been able to have, just for this year alone, we have 9 medical lab technicians graduating. That's a 2-year program that we partner with Mercer Community College. And we have 9 of them who are graduating and in the process, and they all have been placed in the process of being placed as medical lab technicians in our labs. That's impactful. Looking at what happened in the past in COVID, looking at the challenges the labs encountered, this definitely shows our work and what we have and what we have focused on. Now, one of the things that we do now is we make sure that our funds are what we call grade funding. And I know part of what I do includes the word grants. We've been able to not only find funding, but also to grade funding, going to any of these programs absolutely free to our employees. There is no cost to them whatsoever. So as I mentioned, the different grants, but along with that, we also guide those that do not qualify to tuition reimbursement. And we also have different relationships with different colleges offering low cost tuition. But I'll speak a little bit more about that in the future. So right now we have 150 employees, and this is very exciting, enrolled in an associate program in our community colleges, actually enrolled and taking classes as we speak. What is more exciting, we've had over 550 of our employees showing interest in going into one of those programs and receiving their associate's degree. So part of workforce development is just making sure that we connect with those employees, that we're giving them informational sessions, that we're making sure that they understand what they can do and how to get there. Next slide, please. I'm going to speak a little bit about that. So I'm very excited to announce a few of our programs that we have been able to attain, and that is we have a 4-year grant with state colleges. The government in 2022 partnered with we have partnered with 4-year state colleges to help employees who are in their 3rd and 4th year of school to attain their 4-year degree in their state colleges at no cost. We continue, as I said, to provide career coaching. We're establishing navigators for each one of those state colleges, specifically for RWJBH employees, to make sure that they are that they can go and eliminate any barriers, help with the fears of applying to school, and really support them. So we continue to expand relationships, and we continue to offer reduced cost and free tuition, and work very closely with Sean and with Mary in bringing programs and with the leaders to make sure that we're bringing programs that are helpful and that help change our communities and that make that change in the families, because our first community are our employees, as I say. And I think I'll hand it off to Mary now. And thank you.
Thank you, Lourdes, and thank you, Sean. I appreciate the insights that you provided and the story that it tells. I know, this is an area that we are very passionate about and that we need to set new focus on. So I just have a couple of comments here before we wrap up this section. The first being around our neighborhood expansion, if you will, and therefore our goal setting for 2023. And the next slide before we go there will be around our workforce development expansion and how we're going to dedicate our time to growing our employee base and not just buying and building. So let me make mention here, and I appreciate some questions that I received on the chat around what does it mean to be a local hire? What does it mean to be part of our neighborhood? So this is based on our zip codes that are local to our facilities and places where we hire, but also we pay attention to those employees that are part of the asset limited income constrained population, or the ALICE group that Elizabeth was talking about. So that's what we're looking at. So when we pull this data, to be clear, the data is based on new hires within 2022 as compared to new hires in 2021 and 2020 when we started this, that are in designated zip codes. Those zip codes have not been expanded over the past 3 years. So that our baseline is very clean in the data that we pull around those new hires in the zip codes and what that retention looks like, what that retention and turnover looks like, and how we not only bring them in, but what their desire is to stay. I do think that for 2023, within our goal setting processes, we need to review that neighborhood zip code population. We need to analyze whether it ought to be expanded, and if there's been any changes in those populations that need to be evaluated and reset. And then we need to really look at targeted recruitment strategy by location and zip code to ensure that we're making the most at expanding the population and increasing our local hire or neighborhood community within our organization. I think that Lourdes, I just want to tag on to your comment around bringing hope, and that hope is what creates retention. I couldn't agree more, because we are changing, as Sean said, families' lives. So we need to set targets, and we need to set stretch neighborhood hire goals, and we will come back to you at our next quarterly meeting with those, so that we can work towards improvement. And additionally, we need to create program around stay interviews, right? So that does not exist in a standardized fashion across our organization. So one of the things that's not on the slide, but is definitely worth mentioning, as all of you know, we're in the process of HR transformation. What that means is we're going from a decentralized or fragmented HR state to a more centralized state. And while there will remain expert boots on the ground at the sites, there will also be centers of excellence. One will be around talent acquisition and innovation, which will reorganize the work and how we recruit for a more effective and efficient state. And as part of that, we will be looking at our neighborhood recruitment. So there's a number of initiatives that will be setting some goals, and we can report out on those goals and what they are come the end of Q1 at our next meeting. Next slide. So finally, there's 3 ways that we look to bring talent into our organization. We buy, we borrow, or we build. And we're finding the challenges around buying and the increase to the market has been very, very difficult for us in competing. Borrowing is our agency, and we need to build, bring that down. These are 2 ways that are not sustainable for our organization. So we need to think of both short-term and long-term initiatives and goals that we can partner with all of you on to build and grow our population. And that relates back to what Lourdes was saying, is our partnerships, our cohorts with with county colleges. Right now, we're embarking on a partnership with Middlesex County College and their magnet schools. That is intended to train and develop and upskill our current workforce and build a feeder, our pipeline. So there's a crossover between talent acquisition and workforce development of students who want to work with us in the communities where they grew up, in the communities where they have received, and the communities where they really want to give back. And this includes creating cohorts with colleges that don't have certifications that we might need. They're willing to work with us to actually create those certifications for us. And this is how we're going to help distinguish RWJBarnabas Health as an employer of choice and as the place where students at all these different colleges want to go to. So we can really have some improvement here, and we'll have some goal setting on there as well. Finally, we're going to be partnering with the service lines as well as our corporate foundation team and governmental affairs to identify funding geared towards the workforce development opportunities. As part of the transformation, I mentioned we're building a COE, or a Center of Excellence, around talent acquisition and innovation. Likewise, we're also going to be building a COE around workforce development. And that's going to include everything from succession planning, the career ladders that Mark talked about, and building upon those career ladders for clinical and non-clinical staff, building those cohorts with the colleges and organizations, and truly growing and helping find the funding for growing our current base. Because when we invest in our people, they will invest back in us and stay.